So we then decided that we were going to very much focus on prasadam distribution, because prasadam distribution does generate Lakshmi, maybe not as much Lakshmi as selling, you know, I don't know, selling gold or selling drugs, maybe not quite as much as that, but still it generates Lakshmi. But the actual process of cooking prasadam, preparing the prasadam, serving the prasadam, it's all part of our devotional culture. It's actually, there's no disconnect, and it becomes a lot easier for devotees to remain fixed in their service if the activity they're actually engaged in is part of the process, as opposed to having some disconnect like that. Because we learn from Bhagavad Gita, you know, Bhaktiman, Lavijanati, that, you know, one can only understand Krishna as he is through the process of devotional service. And Matchitara Savadurgani, that if we don't engage in that process, or we separate ourselves from that, then we're going to be acting out of false ego. And the word that Prabhupada uses in that translation, when he's translating it, is we will be lost, completely lost like that. And then Krishna goes on to say to Arjuna, that, you know, always think of me, worship me, pay me homage, and if you do these things, you will certainly come to me. So that's what Prabhupada is essentially saying in this purport, that as well as your regular activity, whatever that regular activity is, the idea is also to be thinking, because we're serving Prabhupada, we're serving Krishna, that we need to be thinking about those personalities that we're serving and why we're serving them. You know, Prabhupada could never have done what he did if he wasn't completely fixed in that mission, fixed in that understanding of what he was actually doing. You can't achieve great things like he achieved without that. It's not something that will just sort of happen. You know, there has to be a real meditative process taking place as to why you're doing what you're actually doing. And of course, from that point of view, we all have, we all have the potential. The potential is all there for us to do equally great things in devotional service. It's not that we're limited, or that those great things are only limited to certain individuals. No, we all have the potential for achieving those incredible, wonderful things. So Prabhupada, if you look at his life's extraordinary, that he only started the journey, literally only started the journey when he was 70. He actually started it when he was 69, but before he got off the Jaladuta, he had passed his 70th year. Who's the oldest in the room? Who's the oldest? Maybe I am, actually. Maybe I'm the oldest in the room. You're a little older. But you're not yet 60, right? No. Are you? No. No, I'm not. No. I'm just saying. So nobody is 60 yet in the room. That's you're not 60, really. No.
I'm Purusha on the altar.
But we can't see him. It's okay. He's excluded. So sitting here, Safani Purusha on the altar. None of us are 60 yet, so we're all more than a decade, more than a full decade, younger than, and some of us, I'm looking at you and Ms. Prabhu there, you know, are many decades younger than that. But we're younger than when Prabhupada actually started on this journey. And that was just the journey out of India. You know, then the other journey was the 11 years that he spent in the West and all that he did right up to the time that he left when he was 81 years of age. And it is incredible, you know, although we all have the potential, that there are also other factors, I suppose, that, you know, that wonderful verse that Bhakti Devi speaks to Narada Muni so many millennia ago, where Bhakti Devi says, Idam stanam parijaja videsham gamyate maya, that I will leave this place, Vrindavan. So Bhakti Devi is saying this, I will leave this place, Vrindavan, and I will go to, what's the word that's used? It's not the West, but that's what it means, those far-flung lands, those lands where Krishna, you know, Krishna's name is not heard, or nothing about Krishna is known. I will go to those places and deliver the message of Bhagavatam. I will go to those places and deliver the message of Bhagavatam. Now what's interesting about that is that That's what Prabhupada did. No one did it. That verse is, as I say, it's going back. It's going back. I should actually have it in my head where it is, but it's going back millennia and millennia and millennia, and nobody actually did that. What Bhakti Devi said, nobody did that until Prabhupada came and left and went to the West. But also, what's interesting is Bhakti Devi says to Narada that I will deliver the message of Bhagavatam. And of course, the one thing that Prabhupada brought with him, aside from a few incidental things, the 40 rupees or whatever it was, and a couple of bags of grain for eating and a few clothes, aside from those just incidental things, the only other thing that Prabhupada brought with him was the Bhagavatam. And as soon as he came to the West and started opening temples and creating temples, one of the first things that he did was implement the morning program. And a key part of the morning program is the Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we can very much connect that verse with Srila Prabhupada. So in that sense, there probably aren't verses quoted by these incredible personalities that would necessarily relate to us, but still the potential is there for us to do something wonderful. But mainly the point that I'm trying to make is that you can only do that if you're fully tuned in to what you're trying to achieve, why you're trying to achieve it, and also then fully connected to the people that you're trying to achieve it for. There just has to be those strong connections taking place for you to do something incredible. Otherwise, why are you doing? Otherwise, you're just doing the routine stuff without that meditation, and it's just not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. This is, as we know, the material world. This is Maya's kingdom. Prabhupada said, "Be surprised at those who stay, not at those who leave." So therefore, to leave spiritual activity, to leave devotional service in Maya's kingdom is not an unusual thing. That's actually quite a regular, common thing to do. So for us to be protected, we always have to be meditating on why we're doing what we're doing and who we're doing that for. When Prabhupada arrived in New York City, and of course he went to Butler, Pennsylvania for a little while. He had that connection, but even there, he quickly left there, and that was his only safety net. Actually, that was the only safety net Prabhupada had as a 70-year-old man coming to the West to a completely new place. He'd never been there before, and not just a new place in terms of never been. You may have never been to our house before, which is just up the road, a few hours drive. How many people have not been to our house sitting in this room?
Oh,
sorry, maybe I'm not saying. How do you say it?
How is it? Oh.
Yeah, Danish is very difficult.
Oh.
I don't know.
So you haven't been there, okay? But if you go there, it's not such a big deal because it's very similar to Copenhagen. There's very little difference. You won't experience a big cultural difference. But Prabhupada was coming from India and going to America. It's like a completely different culture, different language, different everything. And when he went there, as I say, so he went there. He had that one safety net, that one connection with with that family in Butler, Pennsylvania. What was the family's name?
Sally?
Agarwal, yeah, Sally Agarwal. She's in that video. She's fantastic in that video, and she's asked what's her abiding memory of Prabhupada, and she says, "Oh, his smile was oceanic," which was really nice. So that was the one safety net. But he left that safety net very quickly after arriving in America. He left that because he was figuring, what was he figuring? He was figuring that actually, I don't think I'm going to be successful if I stay here. I've come here to try to get people to take to Krishna consciousness. And although these people in this place are nice, he said they were nice in Butler, that he was invited to a few places, to give talks like that, But he could see that they may come and be polite to him, but they weren't going to actually, get involved in helping him spread the mission like that, spread the mission that he came to spread. So he decides to leave and he went to New York City. And then he's in New York City, and one day he's sitting, is it in Tompkins Square Park, or he's sitting somewhere, where is he sitting? And that gentleman who conductor, the train conductor or something, or train driver, whatever he was, Mr. Rubin, and they engaged in a conversation, and basically Mr. Rubin was asking him, what are you here for, what are you doing? And this is before Prabhupada had 26 2nd Avenue, it's before that he had 26 2nd Avenue. So that's the first centre. And Prabhupada says, oh, I'm here because, you know, I'm going to open all these temples and I'm going to produce and distribute and publish all these books like that. So this chap, Mr. Rubin, was just incredibly, you know, he knew that Prabhupada had nothing. That Prabhupada was effectively a homeless kind of beggar on the streets of New York. He was living in the Bowery, you know, and he knew that Prabhupada had nothing. But Prabhupada was just convinced. He was convinced that, you know, all these temples are there. Only, what he said to him was, only time separates. Only time is separating all these temples and all these books, etc., etc. Yeah, so conviction. Conviction is such an important quality. And of course, this last sentence in the purport today, where Prabhupada says, if even the enemies of the Lord achieve salvation by constantly thinking about the Lord, what is to be said of pure devotees who always engage in the Lord's service and who think of nothing but the Lord in every activity? So here we are, noticing, obviously you can't miss it when you come into the room, all around Prabhupada's Vyasasana, all the books. So you're all engaged in this wonderful service of distributing these books. And I read a quote yesterday where Prabhupada, it's interesting because sometimes we identify that book distribution is one of the hardest services to do, you know, for different reasons. Jai, Shishi Jai. I don't think that only looks 60.
I apologize. I think he was referring to Susan Mahaprabhu.
Oh. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Actually, there's a very nice backdrop also of that you have there. You know this talk that Prabhupada gives, they've been shown it on some of these TOBP videos, where Prabhupada's talking about the rising moon of Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, the rising moon, and then Prabhupada says, he says, the rising moon, and then the benediction rays of that moon should spread all over the whole three worlds, like that, the benediction ray. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are not to be kept compact in your room. That's the phrase that probably uses. They're not to be kept compact in your room. Meaning, they're not to be kept locked up in your room. It's not that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are just for us, that we've come in contact with this, with devotional service, and we've come to know about these incredible personalities. And now we just have our nice little Gauritai deities in our room at home. We like them and look after them and worship them. No. Prabhupada said, no. They're not to be kept compact in your room. It's the rising moon, Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, and it's meant to be, everybody is meant to be getting the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Now, of course, and that's wonderful with going back to the book distribution reference. Yes, so these devotees, these enemies, they're getting the mercy of Krishna. So what to speak of these devotees who are engaged in devotional service? Prabhupada doesn't say it, but what he's implying is the result, you can only imagine what the result is if people who are acting in an inimical way towards Krishna still gets Krishna's mercy. We can only imagine the mercy that is available to all of those devotees who are engaged in the process of devotional service. Yeah. Okay, I think I'll stop there, and we're 8:35, okay. Stop there, and if anyone has any questions or comments, we can continue discussing. What else we can take the shadow.
So what one's not attracted to any particular pastime of the Lord, actually, but attracted to completely other things and like that. I'm not going to talk about attracted to.
Well,
I mean, it's one kind of like, one sense, artificial, just to sit down and, you know, and meditate on I'm part of this pastime or that pastime.
Well, not so much part of it, but at least attracted to it. I think as devotees, I mean, I think you're just being humble. I think as devotees, I mean, we're all attracted to some pastime. I think we've got a bit of a problem. No attraction to any pastime of Krishna or Chaitanya Prabhupada. No, don't like any of them. We probably have a bit of a complication. Then maybe we can become attracted to pastimes related to Krishna. Like I was thinking this morning when I was reading this, that, you know, the pastime of Putana, you know, and we can be. Actually, I remember one devotee came to me one time in a crisis. You know, they came to me one time in a crisis, and they said to me that, you know, oh, well, I think I've got a really big problem. And I said, well, what's that? And they said, I'm really attracted to Karna. I'm just really attracted to Karna. I really think Karna is the real hero of the, you know, Mahabharata. So it seems like you're not attracted to Karna. So, you know, but at least it's still connected to Krishna, you know, and of course, you know, who's Karna's mother? You know, somebody that we glorify and worship, and she was in tears when she had to, you know, put Karna in the basket or whatever and put him on the river. She was in complete tears about that, and all her life she was remembering Karna as her son, like that, you know. So, you know, so even if we are struggling to identify any pastimes of Krishna or whatever that we like, maybe there's something else we like. But I was thinking about Putana this morning, and, you know, in that pastime it's described nicely how all the devotees were covered by Yoga Maya. But Putana couldn't. She walked into the house. She walked right into Krishna's house. She couldn't have done that without Krishna's blessing and Krishna's his blessings. That couldn't have happened that she did that. And that Rohini and Yashoda, neither of them had a problem with Putana breastfeeding Krishna and all of that. But that was all through the mercy of Yoga Maya. And Putana is thinking she's in control, that she's somehow manipulating the situation, but actually she's just being led by Krishna into this situation, and ultimately, as we know, she ends up losing her life like that. But that was your question, that if we're not attracted, or was your question more, is it a little artificial to
Yeah, for some of us, it's really artificial to...
Even to Prabhupada's pastimes?
Oh, I was only thinking if you get into this kind of identifying that it's, you know, I'm part of that.
I don't...
so that's not what Prabhupada's not really referring to, that we try to meditate on, in one sense, that how I'm part of it, even that might be my sparu, that I'm...
I don't... that's not how I read it.
No.
At least that's not how I understood it. It says, execute his routine devotional service in a regular way, but should always inwardly think of the particular mellow in which he is attracted to the service of the Lord. So I wouldn't take it as meditating on what Sarut is, or the eternal, but just you know.
Well, it could be understood a particular mellow in which one is attracted to the Lord, and one is attracted, you know, as the mellow, I'm a gopi, I'm a friend. But I'm sure Prabhupada doesn't mean that. You know.
Well, but I don't read it like that. Personally, you know, no, I wouldn't read it like that at all. Like, for instance, the pastime that we just referred to, or referred to at the beginning, Prayenameyam Hanimodu Mayina, the Hiranyakashipu was saying that to Lord Sringadev just before Lord Sringadev kills him. For me, that's attractive. I like that. I just like that. You know, this big idiot is coming out thinking he's something special, thinking he's in control, and he's just in this massive illusion, and he just gets his entrails ripped out. You know, yeah, I find those pastimes kind of attractive and interesting. You know, but I wouldn't think that it's me thinking that I have any particular relationship, or not relationship, I have any particular specific role or service in the spirit. I'm not meditating on myself, I'm just meditating on the pastime which I find attractive. Not that I'm meditating on who I am in the pastime, or what I might be, you know, in the spiritual world, but just that the pastime is attractive in and of itself, regardless of me, nothing to do with me, but just the pastime is attractive. That's the way I would have read what Prabhupada was saying there in that purport. You had hand up first? And actually, one of the ladies, would you had hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go
Yes,
you,
hi.
you, and you. Okay.
No, I was just wondering if you finished that sentence, you started to say that book distribution is considered a difficult service, and
Oh, yeah.
and then the altar opened.
I have a terrible habit of doing that when I'm speaking, you know, starting sentences and then thinking of something else and going on to something, I'm forgetting
The
to come
altar
back.
opened, the altar.
But yes, always when the curtains open. But
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The quote, yes, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we often think of book distribution, it's generally considered, you know, one of the more difficult services that devotees engage in. And for different reasons, you know, one reason is just it's actually quite a physical service, actually, just literally going out there for X amount of hours every day and carrying books, and you know, there's a physical effort that goes into it. In countries like Denmark, and not unique to Denmark, but certainly countries like Denmark, there's also the challenge of the weather, you know, that you go out and it's like wet and windy, and it's just difficult from that point of view too. The third thing that's difficult about it is that you have to stop people. And that's difficult from two different perspectives. From one perspective, in and of itself, stopping somebody, people can perceive it to be a kind of aggressive activity. You know, because they're walking down the street and you're stopping them, you know. So from that point of view, actually I know devotees have techniques for that and tactics for that, they'll generally only approach people waiting at bus stops, window shop people who are window shopping, you know, so they don't have to physically stop the person, you know. The other thing, of course, is rejection. You know, for the amount of people you attempt to stop that you're successful with, and then the ones that you do stop that still don't take a book, there's the element of rejection, and we understand psychologically that, you know, that people don't like to be rejected, you know, it has some psychological effect. And so for all of those different reasons, devotees will say that when you engage in book distribution, you literally have to, you know, it's like, you have to let your false ego go. You can't be on the false ego platform and engage in book distribution, it just doesn't work like that. So, generally we see that book distribution is considered, you know, a difficult service. But I was reading this quote yesterday from Prabhupada, and he was writing a letter to one of his book distributor devotees, or disciples. He was writing a letter, and he said, Prabhupada said, I'm ad-libbing, I won't be word for word, it's just the gist of what Prabhupada said, I think. He said, actually, book distribution is so blissful and so easy. And then Prabhupada went on to say why it's so blissful and so easy. He said, because everybody wants our books. There will always be customers for our books. So that's what that was the quote I was going to give, you know. But because we're doing book distribution, it's a marathon now, Prabhupada's marathon, and Prabhupada was saying that everybody wants our books. There will always be customers for our books. So it's like that lady has left, so.
I was just thinking, also about this, like executing service outwardly while internally meditating on pastimes. I was just thinking if you got some good suggestions, or like, because I'm considering like this Bahushakash and Andas chart that like the mind becomes many branched. You are doing some activity, but your mind is somewhere else, so you might become a little like inattentive with the person you're dealing with. Like for example on book distribution. Do you have some good ideas for pastimes, for contemplation while engaging in some service?
Well, it's very true about the mind, that's for sure. Our mind can be, again, different verses will inspire us too. You know, that verse is saying that our mind is either our greatest enemy or our best friend. And I don't know if it's in that purport of that verse actually, but somewhere Prabhupada gets into that whole thing about the mind being the friend or being the enemy. And obviously if we're in control of the mind, then it's our best friend. And if we're not in control of our mind, then it's becoming our enemy. And Prabhupada explains what that can lead to for us personally, what that can lead to if we're not in control of our mind. Again, it's a challenge for us in terms of you answering the question, any ideas? It's a challenge for us to control the mind, the mind. And generally we like challenges in life. We kind of like challenges. Okay, here's the challenge. You're putting this up to me that I can't do this, or this is too difficult. Okay, let me take this on. Let me see what I can do with this challenge and see. So it's a real challenge to actually try and control the mind. So that alone can be a source of inspiration to do. That's on the positive. On the negative, Prabhupada explains where not controlling the mind, where it can actually lead you. And I suppose one of the best examples, but an example that I would give, I remember one time I was with Bibi Govindamaj, and we were walking through the streets of Dublin, and at one point he said to me, he says, "Oh, don't look over there, because he's on this side, I'm on this side." He sort of, don't look there. And of course, as soon as he said that, I looked at what he said. But it was a homeless person, on the street. They were in a doorway of a kind of a shop. It was a Sunday we were walking actually, so a lot of the shops were closed. They were in a doorway of a shop like that, and they were of course drinking as well. And they had just, passed stool on themselves, and it was sort of leaking out on the street. And we had this discussion about it, that's where an uncontrolled mind leads. It can lead to worse places too, I'm sure it can lead to much worse places, but there's an example. Somebody cannot control the mind, so much so that they're living on the street, that they're drinking. I think that was like midday, I think we were around that time, just before the Sunday program, it was around midday, 1 o'clock or something, walking around. They're totally intoxicated, so much so that they can't even control their own bowels like that. So that's where the uncontrolled mind leads, Whereas the controlled mind leads, well, ultimately, of course, it leads to Krishna's lotus feet, but it puts you in such a state of control. Nothing is actually, regardless of what people can say to you. And again, for book distribution, it's a very powerful thing. And just like Krishna, in the example I gave with Shishupal, Krishna had made a promise to Shishupal's mother that he wouldn't intervene. Shishupal would have to insult him at least 100 times before Krishna would intervene. Now, if somebody's insulting us, I know, I'm speaking now for myself, if someone's insulting me, the hardest thing I can find is to hold my tongue. I will immediately want to respond and start insulting them. It's kind of, we say it's human nature. But with a controlled mind, you can actually, that those insults will just brush off you. They won't actually penetrate and affect you in that way. So I suppose the challenge of that, specifically, if you're asking what would you meditate on, is there something you could meditate on in that regard? I mean, Prabhupada and what he did to bring us this knowledge and this information. You look young, you look like you're in your 20s, so, what year were you born? What year were you born?
1991.
You're younger than my son, actually. So 1991. So Prabhupada had already left, what's that, 14 years or something before you were born. But you now are benefiting from what this person did, all those years ago. So just meditate, and the struggles that he actually went through. And we know them all. The heart attacks on the boat on the way over. Even when he's in New York City staying in Dr. Misha's ashram and he's doing his translation, someone breaks in and steals his dictaphone or whatever. I mean, just you could understand, Prabhupada thinking in those situations, hey Krishna, I'm here trying to spread your mission, at least you should not have him steal my dictaphone or whatever. So even though all these obstacles and difficulties that Prabhupada came, he still kept going like that, so we could meditate from that point of view. And then that quote that I just gave about, Prabhupada, the Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda are not meant to be kept compact in